You definitely outlined some clear differences, prior to COVID and throughout COVID. Are those challenges, those hurdles that you faced recently, something that you see that you're going to have to deal with moving forward as we go through this, or do you think people have a better understanding of kind of where things are at and how things are going to look moving forward?
Well, I think that it's going to depend deal by deal, right? Because we actually we just recently raised, even since that deal, raised 12 million on a deal, and it locked up in 3 days. And that was so on that one, we're not going to do multiple webinars because obviously the investors are confident and comfortable with where the environment is right now to go ahead and put money up, right? So we're not planning on doing an additional detailed analysis and 5 webinars like we did on the last one and things like that. But I think it's going to depend on the deals. Like every deal is going to be a little bit different. There might be another deal, maybe towards the end of the year, it could be towards like the election that might go a little bit slow in raising. We'll have to do some additional things. But to me, it was the first time that we really had to sit back and go, what else can we present to the investors to make sure that they know that we're looking at it, right? Because most of the investors that invest with us, for the most part, realize that's what we do, but we never really show them that's what we do. And so we really had to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and show them, hey, this is what we're doing for you. And it's also, one of the things that we do for our investors is, we actually have a newsletter that we print out and we mail. It's a printed newsletter. Actually, this is the one for September. This isn't the printed version, but this is actually the proof for September. It hasn't gone out yet. It's going out later this week. But here's actually one from August that is out. It's a little bit wrinkled because it was on my laptop. We have a little newsletter like this that we send out to the investors, and it's a high gloss newsletter that we send out, to the investors and highlights different things. And like I did an article in the August one that says using the cap rate to determine the strength of a market, right? And we kind of go through and try to educate our investors in here. And so we'll take some of the experiences there and some of the things that we do in there that they don't normally know that we do and kind of educate them on, hey, what's happening behind the scenes in a deal that maybe we don't always tell you, but you can rest assured that we're doing, right? And so that newsletter is helpful for that. Plus, it gets investors to kind of see how we think and how we operate so that they know who they're actually going to be investing with as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I haven't seen that before. So that's cool that you guys take that additional step to educate your investors. It sounds like, your approach had to change based on, never going through this before. Is that kind of how you approach everything in every deal? It's just, you take the circumstances that you're getting and then you kind of adapt and evolve as you go. Is that accurate for you guys and how you guys operate?
When we need to, yes. But for the most part, there's a pretty standard formula that we can use that's been successful, right? But things like COVID cause you to sit back and cause you to think about how to do things differently. And a lot of times it's to improve them, right? And I actually was just down at the Porsche headquarters in Atlanta. I was speaking at a luncheon down there with a couple of high net worth investors. And if you've ever been to Atlanta, there's a restaurant down there called Ray's on the River. And that thing's been open for like 30 something years, like 36 years. And Ray actually owns several other different restaurants in that market. And one of the things that he was telling me is that, listen, when you have COVID-19, you're going to see who the true winners are, right? Because those are the people that are going to actually try to innovate and change and not just try to do the same thing over and over and over, right? Because obviously it's not working in the current environment. So you got to be able to pivot and change. I'll give you a quick example about what he did. Is he at the Rays on the River restaurant? If you've never been there and you're in the Atlanta area, you should try it out. It's a phenomenal restaurant. It's a high-end kind of dining restaurant, but it's right on the river there. And about 10 or 15 years ago, they had created this like green space outside of the restaurant, and it's where they do different types of meetings and venues and like wedding rehearsal dinners and things like that. And they just always reserve that for that space. Well, when COVID hit, they could only have 50% capacity because of social distancing, right? And so what they did was they actually put 30 tables out on the lawn, or if you will, in that green space area. And he was telling me, he goes, now our revenues are actually better. He said about 23% better than what they were pre-COVID, right? And so it's people like that will sit back and look at the situation instead of just closing up and going into a corner. We'll actually figure out a way to innovate. And that's kind of how we try to treat things as well. Is, if we encounter a certain obstacle or a certain issue, how are you going to change and pivot and innovate? And you also, when you're investing with somebody, you want to invest with somebody that actually has that mentality as well. Because if you invest with somebody that has the mentality of, I'm just going to sit back and wait and see what happens instead of trying to innovate, then the likelihood of that deal not doing as well is a lot higher, right? Mm-hmm. And so and I know operators right now that, in the middle of COVID-19, they didn't know what to do. They just kind of sat back and did nothing, right? But for those of us that actually try to do things to help our residents and improve, what the current operations, given the environment, doing virtual tours and, trying to, make some change there, I think are the ones that are doing really well right now.